After 3 presentations, we will have a 10-minute question and answer opportunity. That is, if the speakers allow you to ask questions at that point in time. I don't waste any more time. We have Saskia Visser leading the discussion after the first 3, and Marit up there leading the discussion after the second 3 presentations. And I keep time and have a conclusion at the end. And if not, Saskia and Marit will. So up to you, Stefano, for the first presentation.
Thank you. First of all, I'm so proud to be here. So to see all these researchers and people with, I can say, a lot of knowledge. Excuse me, probably I'm something less, but I want to absolutely to discuss with you about our project, Orchid City. Let me introduce a little bit our team. Orchid City has been initiated by Accept Integrated Sustainability. Accept Integrated Sustainability is a Dutch consultancy firm. We are based in Utrecht, and our team is a multicultural team with different knowledge. So we have a researcher, architect and engineer, urban planners, business developers, as me. Let me introduce myself quickly. I'm Stefano Martini. I'm a construction engineer. I passed a lot of years in the construction field, fortunately or unfortunately, as health and safety manager and trainer, facility manager, and construction manager. Right now, I live in Utrecht, and I currently am a business developer in Accept. So business developer means that in a fair manner, I need to also to explain what Accept does before that we're going to pass to Orchid City. We are a consultancy firm, obviously, and we try to combine research, design and engineer, and project management. We try to support our clients from the idea to the realization. But in what way? This is probably the main question today. The way is that we use every time in every single project, our framework for sustainable development, Symbiosis in Development, was created by my director and chief, Tom Boschert, after 20 years of research. What is Symbiosis in Development? Our method. Symbiosis in Development is a mix between system thinking theory, sustainable method, sustainable process, and tools to ensure high performance through each project. Symbiosis in Development is an integrated system approach. What means? Integrated system is, for us, sustainable is not just an object or a building or something that you can touch or a farm. Sustainable is a system where this object is going to live, to stay. If you are going to consider the whole system, we absolutely need to consider a lot of different levels where we must to keep an high performance. So in our project, we try to keep an high performance about energy, materials, ecosystem, up to health and happiness, so the individual part of our system. Obviously, with this Symbiosis in Development, we have developed a lot of projects all around the world, from USA with the Salesforce Park, that is the biggest, largest rooftop ecosystem, or Serenity Farm in Saudi Arabia as the largest greenhouse in an arid climate, and ASAP is Estonian Industrial Symbiosis Agro Park. But with the Symbiosis in Development, we create Orchid City. Yeah, this short and brief introduction, come back to Orchid City. So what were the reasons because we led us to create this city? I hear also today a lot of reasons that we are in a lot of issues that we have right now in our society. I'm talking about shortage of research, of resource. I'm talking about that probably in the next 20 years, we will have 40% of more people that needed an affordable houses. Just in the Netherlands, probably we will have more 500,000 people that will need enough affordable houses. So, and that a lot of issues, what we try is to try to embrace all the issues and try to discover a good way to build the city. Yeah, I don't want to say in the future because it seems like, but something like a city where we can reinvent the future of living. In Orchid City, we satisfy all of life essential, living, learning, producing, entertaining, and working. In Orchid City, we can find sustainable agriculture, sustainable housing, water and waste management, climate adaptation, sustainable mobility. Okay, so far probably you can say, Stefano, but right now your words are just in the clouds and floating. Nothing. You need probably to give you more details. Yeah, I try to do it. Obviously, I don't want to stay in the clouds. And Orchid City is circular. This is our system mapping where you can see how we are going to manage the renewable sources from the sunlight to the water. So Orchid City is circular about energy, water, food, and construction materials. In our model that we created, obviously with our research team, we are be able also to show you how much food we need and in which way we are going to provide this food and how we can create and how we can respond to the job demand. And the same is for the energy and water. It's important to say that Orchid City is a scalable model. So what means? We can create an Orchid City from 500 people, 5,000 people, up to 15,000, 50,000. Obviously, the input data in these, for these different cities, they are going to change. I show you also, because probably you can say, okay, where I can build this city. Everywhere, we collect and gather data from 3 different countries, so different in climate, different in culture, different in context. And our city, Orchid City, is adaptable in different countries all around the world. In this case, Brazil, Netherlands, and Vietnam. But you can say, okay, we are going to build this amazing city. The purpose are amazing. Everything is circular. We are be able to grow our food and to use the renewable resources. But probably we are going to build, I don't know, huge skyscrapers or highway for the roads because we need to now to create this modern community. And I show you that we are going to use the land for building just for 2%. And here, I'm talking about housing, I'm talking about infrastructure, care and health, and now you can see 80% is dedicated to agriculture. We strongly believe that from agriculture, we are be able to restore the biodiversity, we are be able to grow our food, the food that we need. And at the same time, we are be able to create jobs. We have already calculated this in this model. This is the answer that I want to tell you right now. And this is the first example, real example in a real place in the Netherlands. So how we can, you can see, this is an example of Orchid City for 5,000 inhabitants. Almost 2,000 hectares, the total area. And we have obviously Wetland Park, we have the Orchid City downtown. In a white spot, you can see the part dedicated to building. And if we have 2,000 hectares, just 33 hectares are for building, and 1,800 are for open area. Open area means urban nature, it means forestry, means agriculture. Okay, so far, it's affordable, probably is, but it's, you can probably ask me, oh, okay, I'm going to live in this city because it's affordable, because probably the model works, but I'm going probably to spend 5,000 euro, 4,000 euro at month. We have already calculated the monthly living expense average in a family in the Netherlands. And we are going to spend less because we are going to save money from food, clothing, and transport. The impact is not just about save money for a household. The impact is about the climate change. In a potential Orchid City of 50,000 residents, we are going to save more than 100 million tons of reducing the CO2 emission. We are going to produce 100 of food that the community that is going to live there need. We are going to create more than 30,000 of jobs. We contribute to the local economy for 7 billion euro. We regenerate land for 39,000 hectares. And obviously, one of the first reasons is to restore 100% of the biodiversity. So this page 1 year ago, because we launched this Orchid City just 1 year ago, this page was total empty, total white. This page is page of the partnership or potential partnership, supplier or investor. So this means that probably partners absolutely want to be involved in this project. Where we are right now, we are in the phase 2. In the phase 1, we have already developed the concept, and right now we are currently looking for investor, supplier, and partnership. We have already calculated the return of investment of potential investors because we have to be ready for answer. And in the same time, you can see like an Orchid City of 50,000 residents, we'll be able to 7 million of tree planted, sorry, and carbon saving about 500 millions of tons. And in the same time, so at the end, I can say that probably I suggest you in the next months, if you're going to create, to put the name in the future and potential inhabitants list. I suggest you, because probably I'm going to do it. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Stefano. I invite Cheng Liu on her presentation. Cheng Liu from Wageningen, originally from China, I think.
Yes.
For her presentation that we'll put up on what is called a knowledge agenda, and she will explain all about this.
Yes.
12 minutes for you.
Can we put it on full screen? Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Cheng Liu. My colleague Kun Wetzer from Environmental Research and a group of scientists has developed a climate knowledge agenda for Wageningen University. So in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to unfold this climate knowledge agenda with you and explain you why we focus on synergy and trade-offs of different climate solution. So we have just heard a nice example. I'm going to show you more. Urgencies. So we have heard a lot today about urgencies. Yes, everything takes time. Maybe that's European approach. But yeah, the changing climate has is posing many different challenges in terms of using resources, ecosystems, on urban areas, on agriculture areas. So climate adaptation strategies often need tailor-made solutions, that we also heard today, for different regions, cultures, and societies. Because this solution is needed to reach the EU goal for climate neutral and resilient at latest by 2050, that we heard again this morning, because they are tailor-made solutions for different stakeholders, for different communities, opinions differ on which solutions are most urgent and which are the best. As a scientist, we don't have time. Well, as a society, we don't have time, and we don't have the means to figure out what is the best solution or understand the synergies and trade-off of every potential solution. So that's why we need scientists to help out. We need to act now. I think action, we don't have time, but we need to give the nature time to do their own thing. So according to Scopus, when we search for synergy and trade-off together with the climate, both the number of all publications and Wageningen University publications shows an increasing trend in the last 20 years. And Wageningen was actually the second most affiliated institute in the list. So we are going to keep doing this, working on synergy and trade-offs. So Wageningen has a lot of expertise. We have a large track of records on different climate and climate-related research. We explore the impact of climate change on agriculture, on society, ecosystem, food production, and we develop evidence-based, nature-based solutions for both mitigation and adaptation. So how to break down this complex issue system, we decided to use the area approach as a starting point. So there are urban areas, agriculture areas, forests and nature areas, water bodies. So in this way, we can focus on the impact of each area and to help us understand the future problems and solutions. I think most importantly, this approach stimulates us to do more interdisciplinary thinking, so to think outside your own domain and look from through other people's eye. So in Wageningen, we work on different topics related to when it comes to climate research. And climate solutions are related to these topics. When a solution is applied to an area, so urban, agriculture, water or forest and nature areas, these gears will turn, and depends on where your domain is. You might think the wheels are bigger than the others or smaller. So once a solution is applied to the area, and it can, maybe for you it's a positive impact, but it might be negative for other areas, or in different quantities. So this triggers the synergy and trade-offs for different objectives in other areas. And this is one of the main figures from the climate knowledge agenda. I want to explain you a bit more so we understand the solutions, interventions, and their synergy and trade-offs. And this required an integrated approach to reach this goal for climate neutral and resilient. So for each of these themes, we have collected different research questions from all science groups and domains in Wageningen University. For synergy and trade-off, there are approximately 100 research questions has been collected. And within our circular and climate neutral knowledge-based program, synergy and trade-off has not been put a lot of attention. That's why we have decided to focus on this topic. So not only Wageningen is looking at the synergy and trade-offs, IPCC recent report, Working Group 3 report, has also looked at synergy and trade-off. This table summarizes the synergy and trade-off of climate action, which is SDG 3, on other SDGs. So on the y-axis, you have the 13, so the climate action. On the x-axis, you have different SDGs except for 13. So they really look at the plus and minus, which means the synergy or trade-off, and the dots is neutral. The darker color, the more synergy or trade-off it has. So we thought this is a nice approach to look at from the synergy and trade-offs for other objectives. So I have shown you the increasing trend on synergy and trade-offs from other institutes and also our own institute. Let's move on to the future. So in the future project, we aim to increase understanding of synergy and trade-offs by looking through other people's eye. We think this is really important to get a better understanding. We also want to, this has to be done with a multidisciplinary approach. We also want to be able to interpret these synergy and trade-offs. So once you have such a table, what does it mean? What do we want to deliver? What is the message for our policymaker? So to start with, we focus on production from agriculture area and consumption from the urban area. This is just a starting point. This is example, but you can choose any domains that you want. And then we look at how this, the synergy and trade-off of these two to the objective for the other ones. So I will show you this table, similar as the IPCC table. On the right side, on the axis, so we will define different objectives for each topic in the areas. And here we will define solutions and initiatives related to farm to fork and circular and bio-based economy on production and consumption from the urban area. So this is the proposed approach that we want to do. And to answer this question by looking through the eyes of other people, we want to know which synergy and trade-off arise with objectives in urban, agriculture, forest and nature areas and water bodies when interventions are implemented aiming for a circular and climate neutral food system in 2050. So again, this dialogue this is an example, and you can apply different climate solutions and look at what that means for other domains, for other research areas. I want to end my presentation with the vision of Wageningen University and Research on Climate Research. Combine solutions, synergy and trade-off to create an integrated approach towards a climate neutral and resilient Europe. So with this approach, we can see our climate solutions. Does it lead us to a thunderstorm or a bright future? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chen. Interesting to see perspectives. And I invite Marit Kracht from, is it New South Wales University? Western Australia, I'm sorry. For her presentation on a real down-to-earth circular economy topic.
Yes, very much.
Your 12 minutes. Thank you.
So I submitted two presentations for this conference, one on carbon farming and one on this circular economy topic. So they both fitted in this session, but this project pays for my trip, so I decided to go with this one. So I'm talking about a project where we use black soldier fly to convert livestock waste into potentially profitable products. So we're addressing two main questions that I hope you will be interested in. It's a very circular idea. We're using black soldier fly, first of all, as a waste management tool, and that should appeal to anyone from the Netherlands in this audience where we have a huge manure stockpile. So as a solution to convert agricultural waste. And on the other hand, we're looking at can we use the resulting product potentially as a fertilizer or a feed? Now, this is a big project with lots of different funders, including industry, various agricultural industries involved who are interested in processing their livestock waste, and an industry partner called Future Green Solutions that I'll flag in a moment again. So we have different objectives. First of all, looking at can we even use black soldier fly to process livestock waste, which has been more challenging than we expected from the outset. Then what's going to be the effect of using black soldier fly frass? Frass is the residue that the larvae, the castings, and their poo and the remaining undigested residue. What's the effect on the soil, on soil health, on soil microbes, greenhouse gas emissions, pest and crop yield? Then there is an engineering team involved that takes the frass and is working on developing that into an actual fertilizer product by coating it by coating the product and turning it into a granulated fertilizer product that's still in development. And then I am the agricultural economist involved in this project, and I'm focusing on the fourth bit, which is engaging with farmers, both the livestock producers, and investigating their interest in adopting this technology, but also potential users of the fertilizer. So this is a big multidisciplinary research team, which I already alluded to, with soil scientists, plant scientists, engineers, economists, and plant nutrition experts, but also an industry partner. The industry partner is actually the one that operates the Black Soldier Fly facility. And I want to run you through, first of all, the animations aren't working, but first of all, the Black Soldier Fly process, which takes manures, in our case, or other animal waste, including straw, feeds the larvae, and then we can either use the larvae, and we're looking at potential use as a feed product, which is also being studied in Wageningen, I saw in one of the alumni magazines. But there's other potential uses for the larvae as well, but we're focusing on the frass. And the circularity comes in because the frass can be used to grow new grains and or pastures on which livestock is fed, and the waste feeds back into the whole process. So I want to show you the different results of all those things in it's a flash talk. First of all, the big barrier that we were facing was even growing black soldier flies on manure products. We had experience growing black soldier flies on food waste and had the mix pretty well set up, but manures were a different story, and that took at least 2 or 3 years of various testing. And a photo that you see here is how we collected the eggs of the flies, and that was a process because at first we did everything by hand, but it needs to be industrialized, so that this needs to be possible to be done at a big scale. But we succeeded in getting these black soldier fly larvae to grow on livestock wastes, and are comparing that to the processing of food waste, which is already a commercial enterprise of our industry partner. So what we are showing, and that our industry partners are really pleased with, is that treating the livestock waste with the black soldier fly larvae led to about an 80% reduction in volume of that waste after 2 weeks or longer, depending on what sort of waste you have. So it does take a while. So you're still dealing with a bit of a stockpile, but it reduces the waste. And with that reduction, also the amount of odor or health concerns or runoff and leaching concerns that come with stockpiling manures. But for any waste that has more inorganic components, and I have a photo here of paunch waste, which is the inside of a dairy of a cow, it takes longer. We had to extend that process by another week with the associated costs that come with that. So that was one part of the project. Other part was testing the frass and the response of crops and soils to applying the frass. So we did pot trials on various crops in various soils, but also field trials. So I'm going to show you a few nice photos of what that looks like. So this is one of our field trials in a experimental facility that we have at my university. And you see this nice netting to keep the galahs out, and it didn't keep the galahs out, so we had to put extra netting on. But in the end, one of the results that I wanted to show you is the result of the frass, which enhances the crop growth, not as much as synthetic fertilizers because of its relatively low nutrient content, but still we saw a positive response of adding the frass. But from my perspective, even more interesting, and why can I not get rid of this this bar here? From my perspective, more interesting is that applying the frass also reduced the emergence of pest species. Stable fly is a significant concern in especially in poultry farming in Australia, and using the frass as a manure, as a fertilizer rather than putting raw manure on the soil reduced pretty much eliminated the emergence of this stable fly, which is really significant. In addition to reducing pest emergence, it also reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So manure emits nitrous oxide, CO2, as you probably all know, and using the FRES reduced that considerably. Didn't eliminate it completely, as you can see from some of the numbers that my colleagues sent me, but it is significantly lower. Where my team came in was the socioeconomic research. So we looked at, firstly, we wanted to do a cost-benefit analysis. How much does it cost? How much does current waste management cost? How much would your waste management cost with these black soldier flies? What we found is that farmers, at least our farmers in Australia, had no idea what waste management cost them. It's just a cost item in their book somewhere, but they don't actually itemize it. So it's just thrown on a pile and in many ways forgotten until they need some extra manure to spread. So those financial costs are often not collected. But farmers did mention a lot of non-financial costs, those odor and nuisance effects, health impact and greenhouse gas emissions that we show can be mitigated. And farmers, in this case, it's the livestock producers, are very interested in using the black soldier fly for waste management, which should be evident already from the fact that we had all these industry partners involved. But at the moment, we're testing this central facility, and the farmers that we work with are mostly interested in having an on-farm facility so that they don't have to incur cost of transporting their waste and potential litigation associated with manure transport. So that's going to be one of the next steps, developing on-farm facilities. The other part of the socioeconomic research was looking at the interest of crop growers. In this case, I realize I used farmers in both slides, but in this case, the farmers are crop growers into using this as a fertilizer. And as I said, it's not as competitive with synthetic fertilizers, but farmers like organic farmers or sustainable farmers or regenerative farmers who don't want to use synthetic fertilizers are highly interested in this product. It's low in NPK, but it's very high in carbon content, which is one of the things they're interested in. And that's where I'm getting to my final slides. So we are generating this proof of concept for black soldier fly farming as a waste management process, not food waste, but livestock waste, which is the novel aspect of our research. But on the other hand, we're developing this fertilizer product. So after this, it's the project going to be wrapped up this year. We'll hoping to continue with on-farm experiments, but also involving policymakers, because at the moment we have different regulations all across Australia that limit the potential of this product. And there we have a beautiful website, you can find more.
Thanks, Marit. And I invite Saskia to lead the short discussion, and the other speakers as well. Stefano and Cheng, will you come down?
Yeah, I think let's start first with are there some questions from the audience for either of the three speakers? I will go to the top first.
Yeah, but then they online.
I have a question for the first presentation. I was wondering if you thought about shaping social structures in your new city, because that proved to be difficult in Almere and Almere Oosterwolde, which this project reminds me of. So can you say a little bit more about that, about shaping social structures?
Right now, so can you hear me? Yeah, what was like more the meaning of the presentation is not go too much in the details about or social hair and or it's like try to show that with an integrated and with integrated system and with integrated approach, it's important to try to give an help for the next building area that we are going to build for the request that we have for in these years. So going in details right now on every single details about the building or the regulator. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can give you a answer you, but yeah.
It may be a good idea to have a look at the poster of Saskia Keestra, who talks about circular households in the city. I saw a question here as well. Yeah.
Marit, thank you very much, all three of you, actually, for your wonderful presentations. I have a question for Marit. You mentioned the Dutch situation where there's also a nexus of animal waste. Do you see any potential transferring your technology and know-how to this geographic setting?
Oh yeah, totally. This is totally transferable, and in Wageningen, there's already people working on black soldier fly, right? They're looking at it. I have contacted them, but didn't receive a response. I would love to visit them, but they're looking at black soldier fly as for livestock feed. But once you can grow the flies and have that set up, it doesn't really matter what you feed them as long as you have the right mix. So it's completely transferable. And what I didn't mention, but what you might be thinking, black soldier fly, it sounds, some people think it sounds a bit icky, a fly, but this is a non-pest species. The adult flies do not have mouth parts, so they can't transfer diseases, and they only live for 10 days or so. So they're just the ideal species for this sort of purpose.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I'm also want to ask about the black soldier fly. So in industry, it's well known already. Some countries grow that, and some countries, for instance, Israel, we are trying to convert it into animal, like a farm animal. So it'll be a new cow. But the idea is that I think in this way, industry is more advanced for freezing and transfer them. And an academic level, did you try to go through with FRAS? Did you try to go to toxicity tests and understand? I mean, do you have a registration for that? Because this is a big issue.
So for anyone who didn't hear that, the question was about actually commercializing products like this and toxicity and other testing that you need to do. We try to do this in this project, but we're not there yet because there's no regulation. There was a talk yesterday that said regulation is always behind advancements here, and that's the case here as well. Regulators have no idea how to classify a product like this, and they're going to make us do extraordinary testing and go and test it as a compost, but also as a manure and also as a fertilizer, because they just don't know as what sort of product to classify it. And those sort of tests, leaching tests, for example, are extremely expensive. And so we haven't done that in this project because we're not after commercialization. But if you would want to, you would need to go through all those loops, yes. That's why our industry partner is focusing on dog food, not looking at fertilizer anymore. Yeah.
In that sense, I would have a load of questions, but I would like to go a little bit into a different angle. I would like to ask Cheng. You started with a plea for disciplinary research and also involving different partners to look at the synergies and trade-offs. To which extent do you think that plea to show the synergies and trade-offs could help the research further from both from Stefano and from Marit, and maybe also from others? It's a complex question, I know.
That's a good question. So, well, these two presenters, they gave a good example of solutions. It's a very detailed case. Mm-hmm. And then looking at this case, their stories from different disciplines will give a lot of inputs from it, to look at the black soldier fly, for example. And if you look at from food safety aspects, we look at, is it safe? So the larvae break down the toxins from the cereals that contaminated with the mycotoxins. So what is the mechanics behind it? And it gives really a lot of input. I heard this afternoon from Thomas that well, nature-based solution always take space, and this is a good example using insects. It not always look at take space. So when you open up, here we have a lot of climate research, environmental researchers. When you open up, look at different domains, it really gives you a lot of new ideas.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I think it's not only researchers who need to work this multidisciplinarily. I think a farmer in Australia needs to become disciplinary himself, not only growing pigs, but also growing insects themselves. For instance, what would you think if you want to apply the concepts of producing insects for food waste, maybe in this sense, in an urban environment? Because you are looking at, okay, can we put it at the farm itself, so in the backyard of the farmer, but could we also do that to an urban environment, and would that help, Stefano?
Yes, Stefan, you could totally integrate this in the orchid cities. In Singapore, they do this already to process food waste. It can be at a very small or large scale as you want. Oh, there, what did it mean?
So if you were to sell the product to Stefano, what would you put on the bag? The bag.
It's a
Well, you put the product in.
You would be selling, and you can already purchase the larvae online.
No, but how would you?
As a waste management, as a food waste management strategy, but that's that's actually the issue that lady from Israel also raised. We do not know how to classify the product, whether it's a composter or a waste management, and that has huge implications for the regulatory framework around using this in any setting.
I'd be happy to connect you to some more of the researchers in Wageningen dealing with this, also with the behavior part of it. And that leads me to my final question, and that's one for Stefano. The way I look at it for your symbiosis in development, it's kind of a stakeholder participation tool, because you show and you bring the stakeholders and you invite them. But while doing this, while coming to this design, did you also touch upon some of the points that we were talking about in the plenary session, where I say, oh, but the urban needs to touch the private, properties in that sense, and how are you going to deal with that?
Symbiosis in development obviously is an integrated approach. And I think they probably embrace a lot of things that I hear so far in this conference, because we're talking about biodiversity, we're talking about ecosystem, health and happiness. So I think that probably symbiosis in development is something that we can use for each one of project. And the meaning is that we are be able to use symbiosis in development to try to figure out, okay, also we have to try to keep every single level of our environment, our system, try to keep an high performance for each level, and not just to concentrate about one of them, like social or like biodiversity or energy and materials. This is our final purpose, and we create Orchid City to embrace all of them.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, well, all of you are a plea for disciplinary research and disciplinary working. A round of applause for these three presenters.
Then we move to the second part, second 45 minutes with another three presentations, and they more or less focus on the carbon farming and climate change issue. Sven Verwey from the Nutrient Management Institute in Wageningen, together with Tessa, is the first. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, thank you all for giving us the opportunity to tell about our a robust, affordable, and scalable method to enable carbon farming. I'm Sven Verwij from the Nutrient Management Institute, and I developed it together with some other colleagues like Tessa. So we heard this morning already about carbon farming. So to catch up a little bit, what is carbon farming? Carbon farming is the method or a practice where farmers can sequestrate additional carbon into their soils. In that way, they can improve the soil fertility and the water storage, but besides that, it also helps to combat climate change. Because the carbon that is stored in the soil is not stored in the atmosphere, so it's not used for global warming anymore. Farmers can do that in different ways. They can use grasslands, using different fertilizers, or choosing different types of crops of cultivation methods. And what is happening now is that farmers can earn carbon credits that are based on how much carbon they store additionally, and the uncertainty about that. So it's very important that if you try to measure carbon stock, it is also very accurate, because that gives more credits to farmers and also for the trust in society in those schemes. But there are some challenges with carbon farming. Often it is too costly. Many times methods use wet chemistry, and wet chemistry measurements are quite expensive, can take up to €100 per sample. And also, that you have to keep in mind is that it's not everywhere available. Many regions, and especially in the developing world, don't have very close wet chemistry laboratory next to them, making it quite impossible to measure their carbon. Also the usability. So often the methods that are now existing are focusing on region or even at country level. It makes it impossible to use it for a farmer and also to get his feedback on his farm instead of only being part of a region. And accessibility. Methods are often described at the moment for experts, contain a lot of pages, and it's too much effort for a farmer to get into it and to know about it, and it takes a lot of time. So it should be accessible, it should be simple to use. We think we have some solutions for that, and that is one thing we said is that instead of using wet chemistry, you can use near-infrared spectroscopy. If you talk to a soil spectroscopy expert, he would say we are very lucky because carbon is one of the most easiest soil properties that you can measure with near-infrared. Many times easier than, for example, the pH or phosphorus. So we can use that and make it impossible to do in situ measurements. Also, by developing a method that is really focusing on the farm, by making use of local models for a farm, we can make it available at the farm level. And also using the solution, taking the farmer as a user of it, making it that simple that it doesn't require any training, makes it very accessible, and also that people can take part in it quite easily. So therefore we propose our Wageningen Soil Custom method, which consists out of 5 steps, roughly. I will give them a quick overview and then go into detail with one of our use cases. So first we have made a global soil organic carbon model for all around the world. So we can predict carbon at 10 by 10 meter resolution with a lot of data around the world. However, as many as you know, global models do not apply on local scale. So we want to improve that model at that farm. So therefore we use a sampling algorithm based on this global model to estimate where are the locations that we want to sample and are the most profitable. So it can be the sampling design can be minimized. Now with these locations, we can submit this to the farmer or a sample taker of somebody in that region, and then he can go with his near-infrared scanner to the locations, does the measurements, and submit the data to us. We create a local model based on the global data set and try to improve a model that is optimized for his farm. Now, if we have made this model, then we can also predict it for all his fields and all his farms and giving him an estimated soil carbon stock, not just only the value, but also the uncertainty ranges about that. So to go to the details, our global soil model consists out quite a lot of data sets. So we use some public data sets like MOSIS, but we also have pre-existing data sets from our partner AgroCares, which consists of more than 80,000 wet chemistry samples and already more than 120,000 near-infrared scanners data all around the world, making it a very large data set. Combining this with satellite data from Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, and elevation models and soil maps, we can predict quite good, as I have to say myself, the organic carbon at that content. But with that model, we also know the uncertainty and we also know where to do. So we have here a case study that we did last autumn in Iowa and Arkansas. There we have the model, use the global model. We try to select locations at those fields that have the maximum variability, so that you do not sample twice a location that is very similar to a location that you have been before, making it very efficient. We have seen with this use case that it was possible to do this like 1 sample per 2 hectares. Then the fun part begins. For some people are, you go into the field with the scanner. This is the one that we use, and the instructions are quite simple. So you use your traditional soil auger, you drill up to 30 centimeters, get the soil out, put it in a bucket, distribute it a little bit, put your scanner on it, press the button, and you get in the app on your mobile phone, you get your results back. It makes it quite easy to use. It's already used in more than 20 countries at the moment worldwide. So there are a lot of people already taking soils with this, testing soils with this all the time. Now then we have the data. And you can see that for a farm, if you have now 1 sample per 2 hectares, and the traditional farmers maybe 100 hectares in certain regions, then you have not very much data to train your local model. So we try to improve it a little bit by enriching it with our global data set if it is very close by. And we saw, and that is very interesting, is that we do not have yet a silver bullet as an algorithm to choose from. So we try to use it with machine learning, and we see that for every farm it's a little bit different which algorithm, which transformations, which covariates are a little bit using it, are the best, and giving optimal results. So therefore we perform a grid search, testing out hundreds to thousands of models per farm, and assessing them all using leave one out validation. And then the model that has the closest predictions to the measured values will be chosen. And this is quite important, because the lower the uncertainty, the higher the amount of credits you can earn with it in many of those schemes, carbon credit schemes. So here you see the example. If you have this model, then you can predict the maps. You see some examples for the ones in Iowa and Arkansas. We predict them at the 10 by 10 meter resolution. The farmer knows a little bit where his carbon is more or higher or lower. The bulk density is at the moment calculated from a Peter transfer function, but we are also at the moment investigating if it is possible to use the scanner, because organic matter and clay are both very correlating with bulk density and easy to predict with an infrared scanner. And we saw that the maps are quite similar to what the farmers also expected at those fields. So to round this up, the near-infrared scanner is, I think, a very good replacement for wet chemistry if you want to measure carbon. It reduces cost significantly because a measurement is just done by pressing on a button. It doesn't require any laboratory analysis anymore. We have seen our method, we have tested it at different farms, and it was already possible up from 30 hectares, making it possible for also farmers that have are not very huge to also give them a reliable and cost-effective carbon stock calculation. And the instructions are quite simple. There's almost no training required. It's just using your app, using the scanner, connecting them with Bluetooth, and press the button. It's just one A4 with the instructions that you have to auger the soil and take the button, with quite traditional methods in the field. So it's still work in progress. I can say, but almost every month we are trying to improve it further, giving new methods or improving the models. We hope that this can be a basis to support carbon farming with a reliable method to assess the carbon stock. We're testing out now pilots in Kenya. We're also doing it in the United States and the European Union. With different types of soils can even be enhanced and restored carbon stocks. and the application is automated at the moment. So the sampling design, if a farmer anywhere in the world can get within 1 hour the sampling design, and I think in the next month it's also possible that when he has done a sampling in the field or the sample take and he drives back to his farm, he will find on his email the results back of his carbon stock and he can submit that to the carbon credit certifier. So that was our talk.
Thank you for the commercial at the end. So there is a poster that's explaining the methodology as well.
Yes, if I may use it, this place. There's also a little poster that we have in the cafe, where we show more some details about the modeling. So which kind of data we use and how it works, and now also improving legacy data that pitched the TESA.
Okay, thank you, Sven, for your presentation. Then I invite Mathieu Nogues from INRA France for his presentation on ORCASA Project to Be. MRV, right?
Not only.
Not only.
But
Good.
thanks. Hi everyone, so I'm very excited to be here today in order to present you the ORCASA project. So my name is Mathieu Nogues, I work at INRA France, and I'm the project officer of this project, and Susan Reinders coordinated it. So as you can see, the ORCASA project for operationalizing international research cooperation on soil carbon is a coordination and support action project, and it's funded by the Europe program. So a little overview of the ORCASA project. So it is the follow-up of the CIRCASA project that ended in 2021, and now the ORCASA project will begin in 2022 next September. And the goal of this project is to launch within a year, and after that, in 3 years, an international research consortium on soil carbon. So the CIRCASA final events already gathered a large community, gathering 370 stakeholders. And at the end of this project, we already got commitment of stakeholders in order to take part of the ORCASA project. And we got various kind of stakeholders like companies, NGOs, and policymakers. In order to prepare our answer to the call and to prepare our proposal, we already presented during two workshops the IRC governance structure to CIRCASA members, and it helps us through the feedbacks to launch our proposal. So in CIRCASA, we got four pillars, and so that we still continue to use in the ORCASA project. So the first pillar is frontier research unlocking the potential of soil carbon. So we are going to work on this through international research call, for example, with EGP soils. We are going to work on MRV and the international standard through the creation of the proposition for an international framework. We are going to work on agroecological and technological innovation through private-public innovation projects. And we are also going to work on enabling an environment for knowledge by creating a platform knowledge. So we are really willing to work with different kind of stakeholders. As you can see on the right of the screen, we want to work with research, universities, and national and international institutes, with the private sector, so financial sector, corporates, NGOs, and also with public agencies. So in this project, we are going to enlarge the strategic research and innovation agenda to non-agricultural soils, so forests, urban soils, peatlands, and wetlands, for example. What was done during the 3 years of CIRCASA project? So we developed an initial strategic research and innovation agenda on agricultural soils. We built a community of 100 stakeholders and 500 scientists. And also we developed a conceptual methodological framework, so Smith, Susanna, and all. And also we began to work on an MRV prototype. So the main objectives of the IRC are to promote European research at an international level, to align and foster European and international research cooperation on soil carbon, to create synergies with existing initiatives like EGP Soil, 4Permil, the GRA on greenhouse gases, the FAO. We are also wanting to facilitate synergies by using thematic annual programming and knowledge hubs. So we will enlarge the strategic research and innovation agenda, and we will better share practices and knowledge through the knowledge platform. And we will also work on MRV tools. So we are here. We will begin in September 1st, and we expect to have members in the IRC that will contribute in kind or in cash to the IRC. And the goal is in 3 years to have an international recognition on research for carbon, to have a governance operational and a secretariat in place, and to launch calls in order to work on our strategic research and innovation agenda, and to have the knowledge portal launched. So here you can see the different work packages we are going to work on, and also the partners. So INRAE is in the lead for this project. We will also work with ANR in order to work on the funding of our calls. We are going to work on establishing the ERC and develop an extended S area. We will work with CIRAD and Visuality. So Visuality is a company that has already developed the Global Forest Watch platform, and we'll also work on developing an MRV framework. And for this, we'll work with ISRIC and the CNRS. So in work package 2, as I said, we'll work on making mission and vision statements with key international initiatives in order to align research. We will work on the governance model for the IRC, and we will develop a sustainable funding model for the IRC. So here are the links we intend to have to develop and in order to align research with this kind of projects of ACGPI, the European Mission on Soil, Health and Food, Global Soil Partnership, the GRA, GP Soil 4Permil, and Clean Farms. So here you can see the provisional governance scheme. So as you can see in the General Assembly, we have put also regional nodes. So the goal of the regional nodes will be to have an international outreach for this project, but also to get feedbacks in order to get the expectation from this region on carbon research. So here in WP3, we will work and develop a joint call agreement with projects with, like, for example, EGP Soil. We will work, yes, so this one I already told you, so I will go further. So in WP4, we will work on building an integrative and multi-ecosystemic monitoring report and verification framework. So this work will be based on the publication made by Smith, Susanna and all in the CIRCATA project in 2019. Here we can see the 4 pillars that we will develop in this platform. So we intend to aim to share knowledge on sharing practices, on agroecological, on practices that store carbon. We will share elements on monitoring progress and data. Sharing methods also on MRV methods on soil models, and also we'll have the last part, boosting community, where we'll share elements on project and funders in order to develop more synergies. And here, finally, you can also see our regional nodes. So we will work with Colorado State University in the USA, Embrapa in Brazil, FARA in Ghana, SFRI in Vietnam, and also CSIRO in Australia. So here you can also see Susan Ryder, who coordinates this call. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mathieu, for a clear presentation and success with the project to start. And then as our final speaker, our final presentation, Joke van Wensum. And I think we go back a long time ago when we discussed small microbes in soils. So Joke is going to say something about sand, about clay, and about sand and clay, and maybe more, but we'll have to see and wait.
Can you hear me so, like this? Okay, put this in my pocket. Okay, I'm going to, final talk, final session, final talk. That's, and it's outside, it's 26 degrees. I've been watching this whole day and it's clouded and it's hot, and I hope to keep you awake for another 12 minutes. Today I'm going to talk about a project which is called Live CO2 Send. And actually, it's about using clay to make farmland more climate proof. And it's a joint project of the province of Gelderland and Rijkswaterstaat in the region. I work for Rijkswaterstaat in the east region of the Netherlands. And Rijkswaterstaat is an executive agency of the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. Where is this project about? So it's an EU project about improving agricultural soils. One of the problems, we talked a lot about flooding this afternoon, but another problem in the Netherlands is drought on higher grounds, high sandy soils in the Netherlands. And we had a couple of consecutive years that we had a lot of drought problems in the summer. And so you might say that agriculture on sandy soils is at risk. Of course, there is a bigger context around this, because do we need to keep these soils for agriculture? But today I say, well, if we want to continue to have this kind of agriculture on sandy soils, we need to improve them and to make them more climate robust. So the main use of these soils is in general grasslands and maize for fodder for the cattle. And we would like to improve the water holding capacities of these sandy agricultural soils. We would like to improve the carbon content, and we would like to improve the biodiversity. And the question is how, and in the title of my talk, it's already said, we want to do that by adding clay to these soils. And the project is very practical. What kind of, where do you run into if you are going to do this? And it's not only in the Netherlands. We have a so-called European sand belt. I never realized that we had something like that before I took part in this project, but we have a huge sand belt in Europe. And so we are supposed to bring our knowledge that we gain in this project to the whole sand belt of Europe. So how to improve the soils? We are talking about nature-based solutions, and the question, of course, is bringing clay to sandy soils, is that a nature-based solution? Well, I would say go back to the past. We have profited from this kind of process for a very long time, because flooding was a method to improve agricultural soils. Or actually, we created good agricultural soils by flooding. Think of, for instance, about the Nile. The river Nile is flooding, and there the sandy soils are, that's the only part of Egypt where you may use the soil for agriculture. So the clay sediment left after flooding is key in this method. And in the Netherlands, this method was lost due to abundance of fertilizers, safety measures, stronger and higher dikes, so we don't have the flooding anymore. And of course, in the past decades, poor water quality. So you didn't want to have the water on your fields because the quality was not good enough. And here you see a picture taken, I learned from, stolen from the internet, borrowed from the internet. But what's important here, it's brown water. So there is a lot of sediment in it, and this is clay sediment. And that's the thing that's doing the trick. So how are we going to do this in the project? We think and experience learned that application of thin layers of clay for several years is doing the trick. And you have to remind this that so it's not a big layer of clay on the sandy soil, because then you do something and clay is not a very agricultural friendly material if you put it on thick layers. So we think with doing this, we increase the lutum percentage, so you get a kind of loamy soil. I don't want to pretend that we change the classification of the soil, but we improve the soil with this clay. We think the soil will be better able to build up organic material. This is a kind of complicated slide, but in general, in clayey soils, you have a faster buildup in carbon, organic matter in the soil. And we also expect that the availability of water for plant uptake will improve. As you see, well, I'm not going to explain it, you can look it up later on, but it's generally known that if there's more clay in the soil or more lutum in the soil, that it has a higher water holding capacity. So there is more water available for plants. And the stabilization of organic matter will also improve, is expected. And I have to say there is research that's not a part of this project, but a related project. There is research going on an experimental farm, the Marke, who is doing field trials on this method, and but it's too. It has been running for a couple of years, and that's too early to say that it's doing the trick, but we are optimistic. We see highlights, and here in this slide you can see that I have to point, or I can't point. You have to. You can see that after a while, the moisture content in soils treated with clay, in this case, in the heavy clay, in a thicker layer, is there is considerably more moisture in the soil. So the project is showcasing and doing monitoring in the we have 5 different showcases. And so the goal is to apply thin layers of clay until 8% of lutum is being reached. And the project is delivering the clay. And the clay is coming from Rijkswaterstaat is in this case responsible for delivering the clay. And the clay is, well, it comes, when we do a project, we often have to dig in the soil, and clay is coming out of these kind of projects, and therefore the clay can be used. The farmers spread the clay over the fields. They leave a part of the field untreated for monitoring purposes, and they need to keep a log. And the project is responsible for the monitoring and evaluation of these showcases. Well, this is just an example. This was in December last year, a demonstration. This is the clay, how it's being brought to the fields. This is how it's being spread. And these are the people, so there is a lot of interest. This is people from our director from Rijkswaterstaat and the director from the water board and from the province and from the municipality where the project was running. And we had a good time. It was cold, but we had a good time. So the project is about transition and upscaling. It's about, so it's not only about improving this agricultural soil, but it's also about circular use of clay, because we are running out of these kind of materials, and sometimes projects are importing clay from other countries because we don't have enough available clay. So when we have it, we should reuse it and not putting it in a landfill or have a low quality reuse. The goal of the project to have 700 hectares treated with clay in 2027. When the project ends, we do knowledge sharing within the Sandbelt. We have established a community of practice because there are different parties working on this. And I think the project is also agenda setting for environmental policies. Because when you are working with clay, you need to transport it, and transport leads to carbon dioxide emission. And when you are making a contract, you are choosing contractors for replacing the clay for the transport. The person or there is a kind of balance between carbon dioxide emissions and the beneficial effects the clay has on the soils, including carbon capture. So this is, but when you are doing this, people are mostly looking at the carbon dioxide emissions and not looking at the beneficial effects you have with the transport of the clay to the agricultural fields. And there are also legal restrictions by soil quality regulation in the Netherlands. Well, it's almost always so. We have a couple of issues to solve. I think that was it what I wanted to say today. There is a poster at the cafe. Ruud van Uffelen, he is standing at the poster, and I will be there. So if you have questions, then come down and talk to us. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Joka. It's always good to end with a hardcore soil issue, right? Marit will come back to this, I think.
Although I am an agricultural economist, not a soil scientist, I just work with soil scientists. I'll leave the questions for the soil scientists. Can I invite the other two presenters to come down? So we'll spend the last 10 minutes on question and discussion. Someone's very eager to ask a question, so we'll start with you.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. So I have a few
Yeah, the question is what we do with the structure of the soil when we are adding clay, because you will lose the structure from the clay when you transport it, and in some way the clay has to be integrated in the soil, in the sandy soil. Good question in the first place. I think you have to remember that in the Netherlands, agricultural soils are we don't have a soil profile because soils are heavily disturbed by the agricultural practices. And but on the other hand, it's a good question because when you add the clay on top of, for instance, a grassland on a sandy soil, then the clay needs to be integrated in some way. So we need bioturbation, so we need soil biodiversity, and we need, well, preferably a frost, because then the clay gets dusty, and then it's easier integrated. But that's one of the interesting things and that's the reason why we add thin layers. I'm sorry. We don't do mulching. We just try to see whether it's going without a lot of working on it. But that's might be, I don't know, maybe.
I'm going to invite the next question because we only have a little bit of time. And in the Netherlands, they are really lucky to have very forgiving soils compared to for what we're used to in the desert. Any other questions? None? I have questions too. Well, maybe on a data question for Sven, you talked about the global model. Coming from a country where there's very little data, what's the coverage? I was surprised to see Arkansas and was it the Utah or Iowa? And what is the data coverage? Because I was thinking you're looking at a relatively small scale, right? You mentioned 30 to 100 hectares for a farm, which is in my world that's not a farm, right? But even a small error would have huge ramifications at scale and over time, because carbon farming gets paid over 25 years minimum, at least in Australia. So can you comment on that uncertainty and coverage?
For a global model, we use public data sets also. I don't think we are at the moment with production samples in Australia, but I know there are some samples, but I'm not sure how many there are. But therefore we say also you have to sample locally. So always when you sample for a farm, we have an initial estimate with the global model, but we know that there is quite some uncertainty about it, but it is a rough guess or an educated guess, so you could say. So therefore we propose, okay, go into the field and take also some measurements there so that it can help to improve for.
As part of their carbon farming policies to reduce soil carbon measurements to $3 a hectare per year. So how far is this off of that? Should I go back to my minister and say, hey, these people in the Netherlands have these solutions to get to our goals?
So the exact cost, okay. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure, but it is in several dollars or euros per hectare. So I think for 3 it is possible, but you have to see that the main cost is still in the person that goes into the field. If that the farmer is himself, then it is his own time. But if it is a sample taker, then it depends on the wages in that country, the amount of hectares that he has to drive to, or that kind of thing. So the cost of our method is almost, it's quite negligible compared with that you still need some laboring to measure, to collect your samples. So I think you could more look into that. And that depends on the country, of course, than our method, yeah.
My question is that what kind of carbon is being measured in the soil? Because we all know that you can add a lot of carbon, but it's being eaten by the microbes and it's gone within. So you need stable organic matter to say something about the carbon farming thing. So can this method distinguish between easily degradable carbon and more stable carbon?
So what the scanner can measure at the moment is the organic fraction of carbon. So you have, of course, not some certain other pools like gamification and that kind of thing. Those will be really interesting, but it's quite difficult to have data about that and also reference data sets and also to get that up. But yeah, if those, and at the moment, carbon quantification schemes do not require that. So we also only follow their requirements, of course, because you want to comply with them. If they want to do that in the future, it's a really interesting idea. But because, yeah, if the farm just applied manual and you're going to measure the next day, then it's a little bit tricky, of course. That will always be that case you have to prevent. But that's more for the certification schemes.
but we're getting closer. I want to ask Imra. Did you want to ask something? Because not being familiar with the European system, it sounded that Orcasa is trying to bring together all soil carbon research. I was going to ask how you would engage with individuals that are doing soil carbon research, like a company like NMI, company research organization, and how you bring that together in a big enterprise like what you're engaging on.
We want to organize research at an international level. It's just that there are already a lot of projects and initiatives that focus on carbon research. So what we intend to do is to have a project that avoid overlaps and really develop synergies with them. So what we intend to do is to work with them and to develop with them a collaboration agreement in order to really go on the same way.
I'll wrap this up. 5 o'clock. Yeah.
We're standing between you and drinks. So
yeah, because I think it's structuring and engaging with anyone who's active in the field, right? The International Research Consortium. So we had one more. That was to Tim, being the 4th organizer of the session. What was the surprise of this afternoon, or what should we remember?
So I see and I hear a lot of solutions, but I think it's also very important that we take society with us. So we have to do it with the people and with the farmers. If you talk about carbon farming, well, the farmers at this moment in the Netherlands are very, very angry and are on the streets again today. So I think it's very important that we explain to them and take them with us with all these kinds of solutions we need for the future. I think that's maybe one big challenge.
But is it for your presentation and your Netherlands 2120? Is the first presentation a solution? Does it provide a way forward? The integral thinking in.
Yeah, no, I see many. There's not one solution. So I see all these kind of puzzles pieces are part of the solution. So that's and all these things together are steps towards Netherlands 2120. But we have to make steps today to get there.
Good. There's plenty of more to say, I think. But this is a good finish of the day. And I guess we can now move to the poster arena and then on to dinner. Thank you very much.